클릭해주셔서 감사합니다.
Hello everyone, I'm Laiseo JKD. In the previous lecture, we talked about why governments intervene in the economy. Today, we are going to discuss another major economic issue that affects almost everyone, inflation. Why do prices keep rising over time? Why does food become more expensive? Why does rent increase? Why did older generations buy houses much more cheaply than today? And why does money itself seem to lose value over time? Today we will explore inflation, purchasing power, and the rising cost of living. Let's begin. First, what is inflation? Inflation means a general increase in prices over time. At the same time, it also means the purchasing power of money decreases. Purchasing power means how much goods and services your money can buy. For example, suppose a hamburger costs $5 today. A few years later, the same hamburger costs $8. That means the value of money has fallen. Your money now buys less than before. This is inflation. Now, inflation does not mean every single price rises equally. Some prices rise faster, some rise more slowly. Some may even fall temporarily, but overall inflation means the average price level in the economy increases over time. So why does inflation happen? There are several reasons. One major reason is demand pull inflation. This happens when demand grows faster than supply. For example, suppose people suddenly have more money and begin buying many products, but companies cannot increase production quickly enough. Too many people are chasing too few goods. As a result, prices rise. This is demand pull inflation. Another cause is cost push inflation. This happens when production costs increase. For example, if oil prices rise sharply, transportation becomes more expensive. Factories face higher costs, shopping costs increase, businesses raise prices, consumers eventually pay more. This is one reason global energy prices affect inflation around the world. Now let's talk about something extremely important, money supply. Governments and central banks can create more money. If too much money enters the economy too quickly, inflation may rise. Why? Because the amount of money increases faster than the amount of goods and services. Imagine this simple example. Suppose an island has 100 apples and $100. Now imagine the money supply suddenly becomes $1,000, but there are still only 100 apples. What happens? People compete for the same limited apples using more money. Prices rise. This is one reason economists carefully watch money supply and central bank policy. Now let's discuss central banks. A central bank is an institution that manages a country's monetary system. For example, the Federal Reserve in the United States, the European Central Bank, the Bank of Korea. Central banks often try to control inflation through interest rates. When inflation becomes too high, central banks may raise interest rates. Why? Because higher interest rates make borrowing more expensive. People spend less. Businesses invest less aggressively. Economic demand slows down. This can reduce inflationary pressure. Now here is something important. Moderate inflation is usually considered normal in modern economies. In fact, many governments target around 2% annual inflation. Why? Because small inflation can encourage spending and investment. If prices rise slightly over time, people are less likely to endlessly delay purchases. Businesses also continue investing and hiring. However, high inflation is dangerous. When inflation becomes extreme, economies can become unstable. People lose trust in money itself. Savings lose value rapidly. Long-term planning becomes difficult. In extreme historical cases, countries experienced hyperinflation. For example, in some countries, prices doubled within days or even hours. People needed huge amounts of cash just to buy basic food. This shows how important price stability is for society. Now let's connect inflation to daily life. Many people feel inflation emotionally even before understanding the theory. When grocery bills increase, when rent rises, when transportation becomes expensive, people feel pressure immediately. Even if salaries increase slightly, inflation may still reduce real purchasing power. This is why many workers ask for higher wages during inflationary periods. Inflation also affects different groups differently. For example, people with large savings may suffer because money loses value. Borrowers may sometimes benefit because the real value of debt decreases over time. Asset owners, such as people with real estate or stocks, may experience different effects depending on economic conditions. Inflation changes economic relationships throughout society. Now, here is an important economic idea. Not all inflation is caused by greed. Sometimes people simply say companies are greedy, but inflation is usually more complex. It involves supply and demand, energy prices, wages, global trade, monetary policy, consumer expectations. Economics tries to analyze these larger systems rather than searching for one simple line. Now let's summarize today's lecture. Inflation means a general rise in prices over time. As inflation rises, the purchasing power of money falls. Inflation can happen because of rising demand, rising production costs, excessive money supply. Central banks often use interest rates to control inflation. Moderate inflation is normal, but high inflation can damage economic stability. And because inflation affects daily life, understanding inflation helps us better understand the modern economy. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this lecture, please like and subscribe. And in the next video, we will discuss another major economic topic, recession. Why do economies suddenly slow down and enter crisis? See you next time.